Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to a brief overview of how rooms work for IMVU. Today we're just going to look at the basic structure of how rooms work and how to set them up. We're not going to be doing a full in-depth tutorial with me placing objects and bones one by one, but from just this outline, you should be able to understand how a room works and how you can set up your room in IMVU using Blender specifically. So you are seeing before me a box, which, as you can guess correctly, is the room. Then all these boxes, lamps, cubes, pyramids, we're going to explain that. Then we're also going to talk about this surfboard that I have here later on. So now, let's start with the meshes, this and this. Let's start with the more obvious one, being the room mesh itself. So as you can see, I have just a simple box room. Then you are probably wondering how I am getting the IMVU effect right within Blender. So it's a combination of two things. Normally, when we discuss our normals, we ideally want our normals facing outward. That is the positive normal facing the viewer. However, when it comes to IMVU rooms, you want the normals facing inward. All right, so how do I achieve that? I just go into edit mode, press A to select everything, then I press Alt N, then flip. Now, as I flipped it, you can see the normals are facing outward. But for IMVU, this isn't what we want. So I'm going to come back, Tab, Alt N, and then flip, then Alt A. Okay, so I flip my normals, but how am I getting this effect where the edges cut away as I move around my camera? It's easy. All I need to do is I need to come here to my viewport shading settings. Then I'm going to click back face culling. All right, so it's already checked, but if I want it unchecked, I am going to have my object as before. Back face culling just helps me know that the normals are flipped inwards, and then I get the accurate representation of what it would look like in IMVU. Now, of course, you are at liberty to have your normals flip outward, but of course, that will create an effect that you might not want in IMVU. So I recommend flipping your normals inward or thickening your walls. Now, we have the second mesh here, which is the surfboard. It's just a simple surfboard animation just to display how multiple meshes can be in one room. Let's get into the meat of this room. So you can see that this object, you can't see it anywhere in this outline. That is because everything is parented to this object called skeleton.room, which is an armature, mind you. So this is the core, fundamental, and rudimentary way of producing a room. Without a similar armature, your room will not work. So this is very important. Skeleton.room is the name you must give the root bone or in your armature for your room. Yes, rooms have armatures. This is IMVU. Everything has an armature. So let's unfold what skeleton.armature or skeleton.room holds beneath it. So this is just the pose. For pose mode, what interests us now is the armature itself. So we have the armature object, and then the first bone in our armature object is skeleton.room, which for me is, let me put this in pose mode, which for me is this one. So every other bone, as you can see, when I collapse this, everything else hides. So every bone is in its way parented to skeleton.room with capital R. Take note, the spelling, the capitalization has to follow. The next bone you want is node.room. So node.room is where you have your lights parented to. Okay, node.room is parented directly to skeleton.room. Then under node.room, you have your lights. Okay, so lights in IMVU, as I've mentioned before, I believe, are bones. So you have omnidirectional lights, which are the omnis or omnis, depending on how you pronounce that. Then you have the spotlights, which are like the one I have here, focused in one direction, although the fall off in IMVU is rather large anyway. So spotlights, one direction, omni lights, ubiquitous direction, all around, 360, all angles. Okay, so I have two omnis and one spot. Now, I'll probably mention this again later, but in case I do not, if you are using my Cal 3D add-on and the previous Cal 3D add-ons, for those of you still using Blender 2.6, what you need to do to have direct influence over the color of your lights is make a light and then give it the color that you want. Okay, so IMVU won't respond to things like the power and exposure of your light, but just make a light and then name it directly after the bone. So the light, if I come to render view, you can see I have this light is Omni 1, Omni 2, and then Spot 2. So you name the lights after the bones that are in your room armature. Okay, that's how you have direct pre-export control of the lights. I haven't been able to replicate this with FBX, but it's possible that I haven't just exported correctly before. So the export process that I use for rooms is the IMVU Cal 3D export process that I helped reinstate for newer versions of Blender. So that's it for lights. Let's come back to solid view. Then I'm going to hide this collection back. So node.room is where we parent our lights to. Now, parented also to skeleton.room is our furniture node. So we have three types of furniture nodes in IMVU. You have the floor nodes, we have the wall nodes, and then we have the ceiling nodes. And for each of these, you start from .01, not .00, .01. Then you number incrementally up till the last one you have. What are our furniture nodes? The dots that appear when we are adding furniture to our room. Okay, so yes, you might be a more experienced IMVU user. You know that you can hold Alt to move your object to wherever you want it truly. But the thing is, the base placement depends on these nodes. Without these nodes, you won't be able to place any furniture. So that said, they are mandatory for you to put. So I recommend putting at least 9 per type in your room. Unless you are certain your room doesn't need it at all, which I doubt will be the case, but I recommend putting at least 9 per room, per type. So for the floor, furniture, capital F for floor, please, that's important. Put at least 9 of these. Then this is what they look like in my room. Then it's also important to take note of the axes. So how do I view the axes of my bones as I add them? Simple. That's going to be, I'm going to come to the bone, or I'm going to tap back into object mode. Then in the data properties, I am going to have the axes checked. So if I have that unchecked, you'll see that all the pointers go away. Then obviously to add bones, you do that in the bones edit mode. So this is what my armature actually looks like. I'm just using custom shapes to represent it in a more varied way. So whatever bone I add, I just need to press Shift plus A, put my cursor where I want to add a bone, then I press Shift plus A, name it what I want by pressing F2, then maybe I want it to be furniture dot floor dot 13, for example. Now, the axis is very important. So the floor furniture nodes are Z upwards. IMVU is a Z up rendering engine. So I'm going to set my pivot to individual origins. Then I am going to press R, then X, then minus 90. That way, I have a new furniture node for the floor that I can now shift select my skeleton.room. All right, so let's select the bone again. Then I shift select my skeleton.room. And then I parent it. And make sure to parent with keep offset. Every parenting method uses keep offset. And that's how you slowly but surely build your room armature. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that. Just needed to show you for example's sake. So it's important that you note the axes. So let's put this back in pose mode. So for the floor furniture nodes, the Z points up. Make sure to have this option checked in your viewport display options. The floor furniture nodes, the Z points up, as you can imagine. For the ceiling nodes, the Z points downward. Then for our wall nodes, just as you can guess, the Z points inward. Then let's equally visit our skeleton.room. Skeleton.room, node.room, and your omnis, they point upward on the Z. Then for your spotlight, the Z, it points downward or in the direction you want the spotlight facing. So 9 floor nodes, 9 wall nodes, and 9 ceiling nodes, mandatory, if you were to ask me. Okay? Then I have a custom surfboard bone controlling just this object. So when you want custom bones, custom objects controlling certain parts of your rooms, just add it, then parent them to skeleton.room. Okay, then if you want a seating node on top of it, you would parent a seating node to it. Okay, so I have parented to it seat08.surfing. So whatever seating node that you want parented to one of your custom bones, if you want the default standing animation to play, you call it dot standing. If you want the default sitting operation to play, you call it sit dot sitting. Then if you want a custom animation, you call it whatever you want. So the custom animation I want it is seat08.surfing. So let's talk about seats while we're at it. So seats on IMVU are the trickiest part of this room armature, but once you get it, it's hard to miss. So there are composites in the sense that they hold 3 bones under 1 bone. So we have our main seat bone, which is named in this format seat 01 dot either standing, sitting, or custom name. With the custom name, the sitting and the standing starting with capital S or capital first letter of your custom name. So I have seat 01 dot standing. Then each seat has a catcher. So this is my catcher. And then this is a picture. What are the catcher and pitcher? What are they? They just determine the interaction space between two avatars. That's what it's used for. That's my understanding of what catcher and pitcher is. Then lastly, you have a handle. So handles are the yellow dots you see in IMVU. So you could have your seating node here, for example, but let's say you want your handle here. You could do that. Just your way of telling the user where to click so to interact with the seat. So when you call a seat dot standing, what they are going to do is they are going to play the default standing animation. Then if you name it dot sitting, they're going to play the default sitting animation. And if you give it a custom name, you will have to import an action and then you define that in IMVU. So the requirement is you need at least 6 of these. So I have 8. So I have seat O2 dot standing. You can see my catcher O2 dot standing, pitcher O2 dot standing, and handle O2 down to seat O7 dot standing. Then I have an extra seat O8 dot surfing, which I want to use to set up a custom animation in IMVU. The last set of bones you absolutely need for your room armature are camera.root and camera.target. So I don't know if you can have multiple cameras. I haven't tried that before. I just use camera.01.01.root and then camera.01.01.target. So for your seating nodes, they equally need to face Z up. All right, as you can see, all of them need to face Z up. Z up for all of them. They're all facing Z up. Then your camera.root faces Z outward. And then camera.target faces Z inward. So outward facing the room, and then inward for target facing where the avatar is going to be. Okay? And that is just the basic structure of a room in IMVU. So now let's look at what it looks like in IMVU. My export process is I select the mesh, then shift select the armature. Then I go to file export as IMVU Cal3D because it's the Cal3D process that I am more familiar with. Now you can use the FBX process, but I'm not sure what your results would look like. I can't vouch for what your results would look like because I haven't had the most stable results at times using the FBX export process for rooms set up in this way. Then also, if you look at other tutorials for IMVU rooms in Blender, you're going to see them using empties and lights directly. Do not be startled by that. That's just a newer process. This is the process that I'm more familiar with, that I feel I have more control over with, and it's easier for me to debug when I set up my bones directly this way. Okay, so you just need to set up your bones this way. Make sure that you parent everything to skeleton.room, parent your lights to node.room, parent your catchers and pitchers to their respective seats, and make sure everything is named correctly. Then you shouldn't have export issues, irrespective of you being using FBX export or Cal3D export. So let's look at what it looks like in IMVU. Okay, so this is what it looks like in IMVU. As you can see, this is where my seat O1 is. So that is the default position that your avatar will land in when you get into the room. Then these are my other standing nodes. Then these are my lights, as you can see. Because this room is a solid color, it's not a gradient. If I were to, for example, increase the roughness of the room, you would notice the, let's make this white so we can see how the lights work. So you can see, these are my omnis, the blue and the yellow. And then this is my spotlight direct beaming downward. So let's put that back into our gray roughness texture. Then that is it. So if you notice the avatar brightening up upon room loading, that's just because of the environment. You can use the local ambient option or not. So this is what rooms look like. We have our lights, we have our nodes, and then we equally have the custom animation node that the bulk of the process, you are setting it up after the fact. So I have an animation for both the avatar and the surfboard. So it's 2 actions. The one for the avatar, as you can see, action type avatar is called stance.surfing, named after the custom name you gave the seat. Then the one for the bone, which is the surfboard bone being animated here, is going to be the same stance.surfing, but you're going to add hyphen seat 08, and then the 2 actions playing, they are both XAF bone animations. And this is how to go about rooms in IMVU, basically. Just a brief overview of how to go about rooms in IMVU. What's important is the bone structure. You can't afford to miss the bone structure, not even for one moment or one step. So make sure you get that bone hierarchy right. Everything starting with skeleton.room, then your furniture nodes, your seat nodes with their catchers, pitchers, and handles. Then your omnis and spots are parented to your node.room. Then you also have the occasional see-through node, that's what it's called. Then you have your camera, target, and root. Everything else is subjective. Set up the bones and the meshes according to how you like. I hope this process helps, this overview. I hope it was beneficial to you somehow and that it gave you an entry-level understanding of how IMVU rooms work. Again, you're at liberty to look at the newer tutorials or the tutorials that really sprang up around 2022, where they use the MTs-based method. You can look at that if this option doesn't meet your comfort requirements. I'm just showing you the method that I am familiar with. So thank you again for watching this video, and I'll see you in another one.